So I'm going to read this, and I don't know if people have been made aware that there's a new development on the coronavirus spread. Um, so it's out of Associated Press. I was looking at it this morning, and I already suspected that this is the reason why so many people may have been getting it, because a lot of the spreading events seem to have happened either in airplanes or in crowded spaces like bars, restaurants. And they didn't want to have like large gatherings. They were forbidding people from doing that. They even closed the beaches because they were um, worried that people were going to gather and the large parties. So coronavirus can spread in the air beyond any reasonable doubt. Over 200 scientists tell World Health Organization, which is better known as the WHO. And so this was published July the 6th, 2020. So the WHO has long dismissed the possibility of airborne transmission, except for certain high risk medical procedures. And so I read the whole article. So I kind of suspected that environments, if it's in the right environment, if it's closed in, if there's a poor ventilation system, that the particles could spread more easily. And a lot of times those air vents are recyclable air. It's not like new, clean, fresh air. And so it's like recycling germs over and over and over, or the air vents are like really dirty. And so all of that, of what other people have been breathing out or exhaling out, all the germs, the particles get trapped in there. And it basically, when they turn the air vents on, it shoots that the old germs out, and you're breathing all of that in. And so I'm thinking that's probably how so many people have been getting it. And so what worries me before I read the rest of this article is that a lot of these places are opening and they're not aware of this, or they're not really sure of the spread of this. They just are following the old criteriums or rules, protocols to wear masks, to social distance, but they're not really realizing that even with all of those precautions, that might not be enough to combat, or at least to fight the spread of this. It could cause more people to become ill and possibly die, depending on their circumstance. So, London, it says more than 200 scientists have called the World Health Organization and others to acknowledge that coronavirus can spread in the air, a change that could alter some of the current measures being taken to stop the pandemic. And so, this is very scary because I personally know that there are some schools that are proposed to open up. And so, with little children, I know they keep saying some of these things that are really mixed messages and that get the public confused. I mean, early on, let's go back even early on. They were telling people that it was just people with pre-existing illnesses, and then it was said that it was only older people, and then a lot of young people were thinking, oh, it's only old people, we won't get sick. So they were going out and they were having parties, and then more of the younger people started to get sick. Um, when you tell people things, they hear it, and they're thinking that they're safeguarded from this virus and that they're invincible and they won't get infected. And so they go to environments with the assumption that they're protected because they're young, or because they don't have any pre-existing illnesses, or because they're not in close proximity with someone, even though they're in a restaurant or a bar. Oh, I'm not that close to them. I'm social distancing, but you're not wearing a mask. Oh, you're wearing a mask, but you're in this crowded space with poor ventilation and you're still going to get sick. And so there's a lot of things that I think people are confused on, and that's the reason why a lot of people are contracting, or they're getting the disease. And I'm thinking even the airplanes, those are closed up spaces. You know, you can't like say, "Oh, excuse me, I want to get off this airplane," while you're in mid-flight. There's no way that's going to happen. So you're in an airplane and the air is like what? It's like suctioned, and you're breathing in and out that air that's in the plane for how many hours? So yeah, you could get sick if other people are on board and they happen to have this virus. Then it was thought that people who might not have the symptoms but may have been infected, that you couldn't catch it. And so there's a lot of confusion as to how people could actually be at risk. And this article pretty much says that, yeah, anybody can get it, because they were even saying, oh, kids can't get it, kids can't get it. I'm hearing that on the news. Kids can't get it. Now they have this weird disease that's affiliated with coronavirus, which is, now I may not be pronouncing it right, Kowalski or whatever it is. It's like, come on, guys. That's the reason why so many people are sick with it. Because, like you said in the beginning, this is it's an old but a new type of strain of disease. You're learning it. So when you send these messages that are confusing and conflicting, and they don't all say the same thing, then you're going to have more people that are going to succumb to it and get ill because they assume that they're safe. So they go in environments that are highly infectious, or they carry out behaviors that are really, really dangerous to their health. And so in the letter, as the article says, published this week in the journal Clinical Infectious Disease, two scientists from Australia and the U.S. wrote that the studies have shown beyond any reasonable doubt that the viruses are released during exhalation, talking, coughing, in microdroplets small enough to remain aloof in the air. That means people in certain indoor conditions could be at greater risk of being infected than was previously thought. Schools, how is the air conditioning in the vents in schools? They're putting plexiglass up like that's going to be a safe precautionary measure. Nail shops, what's the air vents like in nail shops? Restaurants, bars, concert halls, venues, party spots like clubs. What's the air like? Are the how many people are inside of that place? How many people are bumping elbows? And how close are they? Is it even possible to social distance? There's some venues, some places, even if you try to social distance, you can't do it, even if you want to. And the air vents, some places have really poor air vents. They need to keep the windows or the doors open. Sometimes that doesn't even work because it's really hot. This is summer. And what happens in the summer, a lot of places are really hot and you're going to be running the air. And chances are it's going to be recycled air, and the air vents need to be changed regularly. They're not going to be changed regularly in some of these places because they're just trying to really get by. And so it's probably a recipe for disaster. They're opening places still left and right. Some places they close them and then they reopen them, and I don't think they really know just what they're doing, and now we're getting this. And what this says to me is that more people are going to be infected, or they're possibly going to die. And it's because of some of this is not only because of how it originated, but it's the misguided information that people are getting. They're not being told the correct information to protect themselves or to be made aware of how serious this is. And that's probably also one of the big reasons why people don't take it serious, because too, we're also getting other messages from Donald Trump, by seeing other people that are in charge or are supposed to be in leadership. They're not wearing masks. They're shaking hands with people who recently got infected, or they're saying things that are pretty much putting people at more risk of possibly losing their life, except for the lack of knowledge of how this disease is spread. So the WHO has long maintained that COVID-19 is spread by larger respiratory droplets, most often when people cough or sneeze, that fall to the ground. That's what we originally were told. So it has dismissed the possibility of airborne transmission, except for certain high risk medical procedures, like when patients are first put on breathing machines. And so a lot of people were hearing a lot of different things in the beginning. I even recall people saying, "Oh, I heard about it, and it's only old people that get it." They were assuming that only old people or sick people get it, people that already have illnesses. And that's why probably a lot of people are getting it. They're still stuck on those statements. Oh, only the older people get it. Only the sicker people get it. Only the people that are black or Hispanic get it. People were thinking because of race that only people of a certain race get it. So because they're in maybe a poor, they are assuming they're in poor environments, poor ventilated environments, or they're in high risk situations because they have no other alternatives. They live with a larger family, a number of family members in the home, and maybe the living quarters are not properly ventilated. There's a number of things that people are assuming that make them risk free, and yet, they're maybe putting themselves at even higher or greater risk. So, in a statement on Monday, the UN Health Agency said that it was aware of the article and was reviewing it with technical experts. By the time they review this, probably maybe 2,000 or maybe 4,000 or 5,000 more people will get sick. So WHO has been criticized in recent weeks and months for its seeming divergence from the scientific community. And so the organization for months declined to recommend mask wearing. Remember in the beginning, they were telling people only the sick people that have contracted the virus wear masks. If you're not sick, you don't have to worry about wearing a mask. Now everybody is told to wear a mask. And so you're wondering why so many people are sick. It's because of all of these errors that have been made in the beginning, where you already knew that you weren't really aware of the transmission of this, and you had been studying it, but the messages that were sent out weren't clear, and a lot of people ran with that, and that's why you have the infection rate that you have. That, I believe, that's one of the biggest reasons, is because you have people that assume from the old statements that, oh, only old people get it, only people with pre-existing. I still hear people saying that. They think it's only old people and people with pre-existing illness, that young people don't get it. Kids can't get it. Although I've seen some stories where kids are getting sick. Parents contact their kids. They have contact with their kids. If they're sick, guess what's going to happen? Chances are the kids could have some, whatever it is that the parents have, and bring it to school, give it to other kids, give it to the teacher, and give it to other parents. Those messages are not being sent out, and so they're about to open schools. They're about to open schools with little kids, thinking, oh, little kids, they fare well. Pregnant mothers, they fare well. They do well with the virus. So when we hear messages like that, people think, oh, it's okay. You can be pregnant and get around virus people and you won't get it. You can be a kid and all the kids are outside playing. You don't know who's walking past. You don't know what neighbors might be sick with the virus. And the kids are out there around all of these different strangers. and they could be getting it. Maybe they don't succumb to the illnesses that adults would, but they're carrying it on their hands. What do kids do? Let's be honest here, and I know it's going to sound gross. They dig in their nose, they dig in their bottom, they sneeze, they cough, they sometimes don't get a tissue, they rub it on their clothes, they rub it on other kids and other people, maybe on the teacher. It's going to be a recipe for disaster. So it says here that the organization for months declined to recommend mask wearing, partly out of the supplies concerns because they simply didn't have enough masks. We have mask makers all over the place, people at the corner, vendors, and I'm just saying here in Los Angeles, and if it's anywhere else, the same. You have people that are creative. They come up with fancy ways and stylish ways to make masks. So we have masks of all types now. That's not a problem. But in the beginning, when people thought they didn't have to wear masks, that was how some of those people ended up probably contracting it, thinking that it was safe to not wear masks. Only the sick people wear the mask. And then it also calls out the people who are sick with the virus. Now you don't know who's got it because everybody should wear a mask because you know that anybody can get it. If they don't have a mask, they have a higher risk of getting it because of these droplets. We learned that. Now we're learning that it is airborne, which I already thought that it was way in the beginning because so many people were getting it so quickly. And it just seemed like that was the fastest way of transmission. It wasn't just somebody coughing and sneezing. It has to do with the air vents. If you're coughing and sneezing, all that stuff, like they said, that's in the air, it's floating in the air, it's going in the air vents. And so even if you're 6, 7, 8 feet away, you're in the same enclosed space, you're going to get it if you are in the right environment. So these messages, they need to redo these messages and they need to try to work out something that they can do as a plan of precautionary measure because we're going to have more death, more sickness, and there's going to be more social divide like ever before because of the mixed messages we're getting and there's more distrust because people are not being told the severity of this and how quickly it spreads. And they are told that much, but they're not told precisely specific details that you opening these bars and these restaurants and these different venues and these schools, it's a recipe for disaster. More people are going to get sick. We're going to start seeing kids that are going to be sick. Something's going to be so bad in the air, that germ, and kids are going to start developing certain diseases that you wouldn't believe because of all of these misinformed messages. So the organization, it said that for months they declined to recommend mask wearing. You know why I'm repeating this? Because these are the messages that we were hearing, partly out of the supply concerns, and has also continued to describe the transmission of COVID-19 from people without symptoms rare. You hear that? Without symptoms. And then after that, we were heard that some people are asymptomatic, and that now we're hearing that even asymptomatic could be possibly spreading the germs. At first, we were told it was rare. So all these conflicting messages are so damaging and just as deadly because you set yourself up assuming that it's safe and it isn't safe. And we've been seeing all these mayors and governors explain all these things, and some people get tired of looking at it and they just turn the TV. But this right here, nobody's watching this. Everybody is following the old messages. That's why so many people are sick with this. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen, you're going to have more people that are going to be sick because People are going to be people and do people things. It's hard to stay indoors. It's hard to lock yourself off from the world. But if you are not equipped for this type of pandemic and you're not in a safe situation and environment, and if the environment is not safe to be in because the air vents are bad, there's poor ventilation, our messages that we're hearing are not clear, and we assume that, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask because it's my constitutional right. I can do what I want. And you're not really knowing all of the severities of this, and you're unaware or you're unsure about how this is going to go, then you're going to go out there and you're going to risk your life for something that you were misinformed on simply because they didn't know all the answers in the beginning, and they were telling you this and that and this and that. It was slowly developing. So basically, all these things are slowly developing. And now you're learning that this thing all along was airborne. They opened up gyms. What do people do in gyms? They sweat. You're out of your pores comes a lot of sweat. You're breathing harder. How are the air systems and the vents in gyms? More people are going to die in there, because they think it's safe. I'm going to go work out in the gym. You're going to go sweat and you're going to huff and puff and breathe all of your germs and all your sweat and everything. And you're putting your sweat and all of your liquids on equipment. And people are tired and they've been working out, and they're not always going to be able to wipe all of that stuff clean. You're going to get your staff to come along and sanitize, and there's going to be something that's going to happen where somehow somebody's going to slip up and they're going to get infected, and all it takes is one or two people, and then boom, now you have a super spreader event. So the letter was endorsed at 239 scientists from a variety of fields. Okay, so they endorsed it because they said that it stated that the issue of whether or not COVID-19 was airborne was of heightened significance as many countries they stop the restrictive lockdown measures. Okay, they start opening up things basically. And so that's what's happening now. They're opening things. They have testing centers. Oh, yeah, it's great to have testing centers, but you're going to be having people there for a while testing, because more and more people are going to be in these beds. More and more people are going to be sick. So the authors cited previous studies suggest that the germs closely related to the new virus were spread by way of airborne transmission. They said that there is every reason to expect that the coronavirus behaves similarly. And so they also cited that a Washington state choir practice and research about a poorly ventilated restaurant, okay, in what is called Gansu, China, each of which raised the possibility of infection from airborne droplets. So we are concerned that the lack of recognition, you hear that, of the risk of airborne transmission of this disease, COVID-19, and the lack of clear recommendations on the control measures against the airborne virus will have significant consequences, the scientists wrote. And it's basically what I'm saying is that more people will die for the lack of knowledge of how this disease is spread. And so people may think that they are fully protected by adhering to the current recommendations, but in fact, additional airborne interventions are needed. Scientists around the world have been working furiously to understand the new virus. The U.S. Center Disease Control Prevention says that it is thought to mainly jump from person to person through close contact, but adds we are still learning about how the virus spreads. You hear that? So Martin McKee, a professor of European Public Health at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who was not linked to the letter, said that the scientists' arguments sounded entirely reasonable. So basically, they're warning people that if you're in poor ventilated spaces, if you're not social distancing and wearing masks, and you could be in bars, clubs, venues. If they're poorly ventilated, there's the right environment for a super spreader event. If you're in close proximity with people who are sick, um, that's another opportunity. But even if you're not even in close proximity, you can be in a right environment. It's hot, it's warm, you're in these crowded spaces, you're sitting close. People sometimes are letting their guard down and relax because they have this false sense of security that everything is okay because things are opening up, and they put themselves at risk for the lack of knowledge of the spread of this disease. And so that is what they're warning, and they're not sure that people have gotten the messages clear. And so we already are beyond the 2 million mark point of people who have contracted it. And so the more you have sickness out there, the more opportunity for people who aren't sick to get infected, even if they're doing everything they can to keep themselves safe. And so you got to go to the store to go shopping. You have to pay your bills, and you have to maybe go to certain offices and take care of different things, run errands. So who's to say that you won't be in an environment where it's poorly ventilated, or you'll be around someone who has contracted it, and even though they're wearing a mask, somehow they cough and sneeze, or you're around some kids that they're coughing and sneezing, and they're rubbing, you know, you know, um, mucus and everything all over other kids and all over other staff. If they're at a school environment and their parents come to the school and they were told to quarantine and they didn't follow the precautionary measures, but yet they came up to the school and put other kids and other parents at risk. And I truly will be honest with you, I had saw a situation that happened just like that. And that can happen again and again and again. And actually, there's more opportunity for it to happen now that we're at past the 2 million mark and they're about to open schools. They have schools that are opening in Los Angeles. They have some schools in the California area that are going to reopen, and some of those school classrooms are very close, and they're boxed in. Kids are mouthing toys. They're also in poorly ventilated spaces. They're using rented out spaces like maybe churches, or they're using like an old building that they've been in forever that's poorly ventilated. Yes, there's going to be more sickness and death. Those teachers are not going to be able to continue teaching because they're going to fall ill all of a sudden, wondering, how did I get this? Parents sometimes don't even know they're sick, and they come to the school to pick up their kids. They have to be in contact with the teacher because they vocalize and express, what did the kid do? What did they eat? Blah, blah, blah. You guys have not worked out all of the details of how serious this is with people and what they're putting themselves into. As fall is approaching, at some point, people are going to want to open up some of these places. Some of these people that are on the front lines have children that have to have childcare. So what about those schools environments and those places for kids? What about those teachers? What about some of the people that are like staff that are like, maybe they're the only person that makes the money in the home. And if something happens to them, that's it. They're the only person that's bringing money home, that's paying the bills. You haven't thought about those circumstances, how that puts people in a really bad spot. There's also situations where there are environments where they're working in poor ventilated environments, and people are putting themselves at risk every day, and all because of the lack of ventilation. So I just thought, even these events right here where people are thinking, I'm just going to go out, have a beer or I'm gonna go have a soda or some water, and I'm gonna sit in this place and I'm just gonna listen to the music, and you're in a space where people could end up getting really, really sick, all because somebody goes ah, and coughs, you know, and that spreads everywhere. And there's nowhere for those germs to go, but all in the air, and 10 people get it. And now those 10 infect another 10, and then 20, and then so on. And so I just think the messages need to be conveyed clear, the seriousness of this. I don't think people really are aware. People are still thinking that only old people and people with pre-existing illnesses get it. Oh, kids can't get sick. Kids can't get sick. Kids can carry germs on their hands. They wipe their nose with their hands. They wipe their nose with their hands. Even if you go along and you wipe kids' noses all day long, they wipe their nose with their hands or with their clothes. Okay, people? So you guys are not realizing what risks now are people put in, that where they're going to be in these environments around this, and this is their job, or this is who they are with, and now, boom, 40 people are sick, you know. Anyway, I'm gonna let this video go. It's just really scary. Um, have you seen the numbers? It just keeps rising and rising. Seemed like as soon as they opened up things, and I said this, that they opened up too soon. That was one. They didn't know all of this, and now we're getting this, and they've already opened up like what? How many? Probably 100, 200 places, and they're still opening up. And it's proposed that they're going to open up schools. You see where they say, oh, this is what schools might look like. They have all this plexiglass, like that's going to keep you safe. Oh, you could have the whole school could look like a bubble, but if the air vents are poorly vented, where the air is poor, everybody in each cubicle is going to get sick. So, having said that, I'm going to let this video go. What are your thoughts on this? This is just really sad. I feel like this is also what contributed to why more people got sick. It's not only just the lack of knowledge, it's the messages that are, being bounced back and forth, and then what you see people doing. People learn from not only hearing, but from seeing. And when they see other people not wearing masks, guess what they're going to do? Not wear masks. When they see other people saying, oh, they're trying to control us, it's our constitutional rights, and a lot of stuff is going on right now, people. A lot of people are angry, a lot of fear is out there, a lot of people don't trust certain powers that be because they haven't been very honest maybe in the past on issues. And so now we've got this. People are not really feeling all of this. How would you say they don't trust it? And so now we're hearing airborne, which I always thought it was, because I was like, there's too many people getting this. It's got to be in the air. And literally, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make an admission here. And I hope news people hear this. I hope regular people hear this. I've been in some places where after I leave, I get this headache. And I tested for the COVID and it said that it was negative. But I feel like from all the sickness that's in the air in certain environments, that even if you don't have the virus, if you're in an environment where the air is bad or where you're around people that could have it, you get like an effect. I feel like it's in the air where you can get a headache just from around that environment. Now, I'm saying this. Now, this is in my opinion. I'm going to leave it like that. But I feel like if there's so much sickness around, that how you've heard where if a lot of people have flu or influenza, a lot of sickness, a lot of that you get a touch of the flu or you get a touch of whatever it is, you get like a little teeny, like a little bit. You just feel this. You feel like you come in contact. This is a sick environment, and I think I got a little bit of whatever it is, but it wasn't enough to infect you. But it was enough to make you feel enough that, hey, I got to get out of here because this doesn't feel right. You know, I feel like there's some places, even here in LA, that if you go in some stores, it's like, what the heck did I just come in and walk into? You know, and so you have your mask on, but you got a headache all of a sudden, and and then the headache fades off. It fades off because you realize, okay, and then you're like, okay, now I feel better now that I'm out of that area. But that area is highly infectious. That's what it is. And so that's what I felt all along, that this was airborne, and that it's a possible chance that you can get it if you're not wearing a mask and you're in these environments, that you could get it. If it's not a wide open space where it's more sprawling and people can spread out, if it's closed in and you know it's just a ripe environment to spread this disease, and more people get sick. So anyway, I'm gonna let this video go. Like, subscribe, and thanks for listening. Be safe.